demo page here. And let's see, I know it's sometimes a little hard to see with the Zoom boxes. Is there any particular area you'd like me to focus on, Amadi?
This is the section that I have dedicated the most to just the artistic portion of my project, but the website as a whole really is the project, just because I'm hoping to continue to have discussions and share the voices of others through this website.
Oh, I was gonna try and mute this and show it. Sorry, there we go. Yeah.
Well, this is a video of just the process of me making them, but I sort of just decided that, you know, I thought that this project was worth discussing just because it affects so many women and just people in general, families all around the world. So for me, what really stuck out was the fact that there are 64,000 missing Black women and girls in America. And to hear a crazy statistic like that was just really hit me and kind of made me realize the demographic I was in and the lack of media representation and urgency around finding those people. And it was a really fantastic experience to work with 3 other young ladies, including Zivi, who were just so willing to talk about their experiences with the whole epidemic, as well as just look more into it as a whole, and seeing all the families and people that have been affected by it, and seeing how people are trying to put themselves forward to make a change.
Does anybody have questions for Amadi? Amadi, what was the voice during the video? Wasn't there a voice of someone making a statement?
Yeah, it's a song from, or an interlude from the Solange album, and it was just sort of a commentary on being Black in America in general, and I just found that it really kind of fit well with the whole message that I was putting out, so I thought it would be a nice addition on top of the other voices that I gave an outlet to.
Yeah, it's very powerful. Are there questions in the chat? Do we have some chat questions?
There are 2 questions in the chat. I can read them unless the person wants to read them themselves. No? Okay. So the first question is, how does using pictures of classmates deepen your message?
I think that for me, I like using people I know, and that people that will view my work will know, mainly because I feel like it makes a bigger impact and makes that person really think about the actual cause itself. Because I feel like for me, it's one thing to see another person of color and just say like, oh, like that's happening in that person's life, but in reality, it's affecting every young Black woman out there. And so when having conversations with these young women and hearing their concerns and just sort of seeing the way in which it would affect them, I thought that it would just be beneficial to use women that I know. And I think it also just makes it so I have a deeper connection to my piece, and knowing like just how those people would react and how those people would feel. And I think it just kind of gives a whole nother angle to the project as a whole.
Thank you. Great question, great answer. So the next question in the chat is, what do you see as the greatest obstacle to a just prioritization and resource allocation for missing people of color?
I think mainly just media representation is the biggest thing. And overcoming the biggest obstacle is probably something that I researched along with this, which is called missing white woman syndrome, which is the media's ability to look for and prioritize young white women and seeing them and putting them up as innocent and pure and kind of embodying most stereotypes that they have for like a delicate young woman. And they allocate a lot more resources towards those cases because they believe that those are the cases that people will look for, and that's what they end up putting on screens and in podcasts, newspapers. So they're mainly, I think the main obstacle is just awareness and spreading awareness about it, which is why I wanted to do my project, because I find that it's kind of an unconventional way of sharing the voices of those that are in this epidemic.
Great. Okay. Another
comment.
Sorry, go ahead, Tony.
Great. Hi. Just wanted to thank Amadi, my fellow Brooklynite, for her work, but also just wanted to share part of my reaction to it, which is my wife and I were in Montana last year, and as part of our visit there, we went to a Native American museum right near one of the reservations there. And not part of the show, but just outside in front of the building, there was a garden. And as we approached, we saw those aren't real flowers; those are made. And as we got closer, we saw that they were made flowers with a photo in the center of each one, and each flower was a person that went missing from the reservation or around the reservation. Very predominantly women, not exclusively, but mostly. And I immediately flashed back to that when I saw your milk cartons expressing the same sense of loss.
Yeah, I definitely feel like for women of color in general, there's just such outrageous statistics about us going missing. And I think that for me, my project specifically focused on Black women, but within that research, I also found so many crazy statistics just in terms of like sex trafficking and murdering as well. So seeing the way in which the missing person epidemic has affected women of color in general is even more insane than I can put together, honestly. But I think that it's a really big problem that people don't acknowledge on a regular basis. So I wanted to I think art is a really great way to express those types of things. So that's why I wanted to make my piece.
There's another question in the chat. It is, what type of impact do you hope this will have on your viewers?
Honestly, I think that I want my viewers to just think more about the topic, as well as, visit organization websites and sort of educate themselves on the topic, because I feel like this is something that goes untalked about in a lot of communities and not in a lot of spaces. And I know even for like my family and for the families for the young ladies that I was talking about, the sense of preparing themselves for something shouldn't be necessary, in the sense that I shouldn't be afraid to walk on the street at night and have a fear of being taken, in the sense of how close some of these women have even been involved in being almost sex trafficked or just having altercations with people. And so I feel like giving a voice to those people and sharing and acknowledging it is the biggest thing I want people to do. And I want people to realize that it affects all women of color, and not just the ones they see in the news. And those ones that they are seeing in the news are only one of thousands of people. And I think I want people to realize the lack of media coverage that these people are actually getting.
So there's one more question, but I have to bring up the time, as we are giving everyone 12 minutes maximum. So you have 2 minutes left, Amadi. Put pressure on you there, but just want to give everyone the same amount of time. And I'll just go ahead and, there's a person that wrote the question and read it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just read it. Were there any surprises for you as you worked on this project?
I think my project honestly just was the surprise in general. I think that when looking for resources and doing my research, I found that everything was really open to the public. So like the statistics that I was looking at were from federal organizations, and I was able to see those types of things on a regular basis without, having to jump any big hurdles, which I thought was really surprising. And I definitely had to remember that I wasn't in Oxbow when it came to my creative process, because I definitely had some hiccups in terms of creating the actual piece. But I think overall it was just a good experience to have in terms of my first sculpting project, which was definitely a big challenge. I haven't really worked in the three-dimensional realm before, so that definitely was a little bit of a challenge, but it I don't think it really stopped when it came to surprises.
Well, thank you very much, Amadi. I think, I don't know, maybe it's better if we hold our gratitude through some form of applause till the end, but yeah, we can we can all give her some snaps. Yeah. So we seem to be missing our next presenter, so we're going to go on to Melina. Are you ready, Melina? Okay, and would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself, and then I'll screen share.
Okay, I'm Melina Haskell. I live in Manhattan, New York. And my final project is about mental health in teens, and specifically my art project is about the feeling of loss and sort of grieving that.
Sorry, it's a lot to do. Okay. Beautiful Oxbow campus. Here, should I click on this?
I'm open to any questions, or I can just explain a little bit more if that's.
Yeah, maybe explain a little bit more of your research and how you arrived at your the subject matter in your painting.
Okay. Well, this actually all started in Project X, which we were working on a couple of months ago before we left. And I was sort of interested in the brain and how psychopaths are actually born or created or whatnot. And then it sort of evolved into studying hysteria in the Victorian age, especially, where women would be diagnosed with hysteria when they were just experiencing like postpartum depression or anxiety or just being disobedient. So that was what a lot of my research was based on, both in that project and this one. And it also sort of evolved into being trapped or helpless and like losing time that you would have had. But obviously, and I sort of related it to what's happening now and self-quarantine and not being able to be at Oxbow. And so what this project is it depicts sort of sand falling through your fingers where you thought you had something and it was so solidly in your future and now it's sort of gone. But the bright colors sort of represent hope and happiness and where you can see the good things in your life. And so it sort of represents being grateful, I guess.
A question, Melina, did making the paintings, one of the things you talked about in your writing is the grieving process of losing this time. So did making the paintings help you with that process?
Yeah, I think so. I think just making art helped a lot because I've never really made art in my house before. There's not like too much space for that, and I'm worried I'm going to get paint all over everything. But I think it was really cool to try to make space for that, and it did help a lot, I think.
Did you find that there are other activities that have helped change your perspective of losing time during the shelter in place order?
I've just picked up some things. Like, I've been reading more, I've been watching a lot of TV. It's sort of just passing the time. And obviously we have family dinners every night, which is really nice. And just being here and trying to get exercise.
Do we have other questions for Melina?
Melina, when you were creating this painting and you were making the sand from the hourglass kind of fall into the hands there, I noticed that the sand, well, it looks like it's on a black background, right? So how did you make the sand look differently textured than the hands is what I'm kind of curious about, because they're the same colors.
Yeah, it's actually sugar.
Interesting.
So I used the paint to put the sugar on it, and it was sort of like layering the sugar so it looked like it was a similar color. I actually got the idea from someone in my advisory. I don't remember who, but we were just sort of talking about our projects, and then sugar came to mind, so I just used it.
Yeah, there's a lot of using household materials, I think, that has come into play during this process.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. It's kind of like sweetening the deal of time there.
Yeah.
And those are all smaller canvases that to create the larger.
Yeah, they're all 5x7 canvases, which is pretty much what I did for the project when Eric Veet came for his residency.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We have a question in the chat. What was your biggest obstacle when creating this?
I think it was just figuring out all the materials, because I don't really have any of these, and it was hard to get them because ordering was so difficult. And then the paint that I had, I didn't actually have that much paint, so I had to sort of ration everything. Yeah, and I think just like figuring out what I was going to do. I was so scared that I was going to mess it up that I kept putting it off, and then eventually I just did it and it happened. So.
Is there a reason that there were 9 panels?
I sort of just like the size, and I like how I did it vertically, because I think just the sand falling, I think it was just a good size for everything. And I'm familiar with it too, so like putting everything together, I think was just familiar, which was helpful.
There are a few more questions in the chat box. I'll just read them. The next one is, what kind of art do you imagine creating as the quarantine continues?
I do still have more canvases, and I do want to keep painting because I have some leftover paint. I think it's honestly just the easiest way to keep creating art, and there are other materials that I have. But I think I really enjoy it, and I think it passes the time, and it's kind of therapeutic in a way. So I think I'm definitely going to keep doing that.
Was that it, Celeste?
There's one more question and 2 more minutes. Well, actually, there's 4 minutes maximum. Okay, so the next question is, do you think creating this helped when coping with coming back from Oxbow early?
Yes, I do. I think especially just the process of it and talking to teachers and classmates, asking for help and getting feedback was really beneficial, just to see everyone on a daily basis. And making the art too was definitely sort of a distraction, which was good.
I have a question. Do you think this project and making this painting will help you when you are in a place of grieving in the future, as like a way of informing you how to like maybe make space for that or ways to deal with it in general?
Yeah, I think it definitely gave me some experience in trying to move on from something, but also honoring it. Like, I am so happy with what I did at Oxbow and the experiences that I had. And just remembering that, I think, helps a lot, because we did lose 2 months, but also, like, it was, I wouldn't change anything. So I think it did give me that.
Nice.
Are there any more chat questions, Celeste? Or is that...
No more chat questions.
Great.
That concludes it.
Thanks, Melina. And we have a bit of a time buffer since we are missing a person. So if we do have a little extra time if we need to use it. So our next presenter is Savannah. Are you here?
Hi, my name is Savannah Warwick. I'm from Atlanta, and I made a film about psychology of a serial killer and how abandonment in childhood can lead to that behavior. And it's kind of an interesting topic, but I've always been really interested in psychology. And recently I've been watching a lot of Criminal Minds and Mindhunter, and it's just all been super fun to learn about. And yeah, I don't know, are you going to show the film? It's only 3 minutes, really.
The short one, sure. Let's do it.
This is the puzzle of conditions where crime and the disordered mind are related. We're concerned here with the psychopath, the man without a conscience. He is of the gravest concern to criminologists and to psychiatrists, all those interested in antisocial behavior. If a man can't distinguish between right and wrong, is he sick and ought he to be in a mental hospital, or is he a criminal and should he be locked up in jail?
It's hard for you, my baby, because it's hard for me, my baby, and the darkest hour is just before dawn. Each night before you go to bed, my baby, whisper a little prayer for me, my baby. Lord, it's hard for me, my baby. And the darkest hour is just before dawn.
Baltimore, Ontario now replacing a suspicious dancer for people found yesterday. Now, a murder investigation
All right. Yeah, and yeah, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask, or I can just explain. I guess I'll begin with the reason I picked making a film was because I've done a lot of experimenting with different mediums, and I usually work with photography or just painting, drawing. I had a little bit of experience with sculpture while I was at Oxbow, and we made a wabi sabi project, and that was pretty much just making a film about like a certain spot that you found was wabi sabi, that gave you like peace, and I wanted more experience with filmmaking, and I thought that there was really no other way to portray this subject, with a painting or a poem, because it's just such a like deep category. So I got my friend Jake to do the filming, and I wrote like a whole scene script, whatever you want to call it, and we went around Atlanta and filmed at places that looked abandoned. And there's a lot of places like that right now due to quarantine. And we got all these shots just before he pretty much opened up the city. So I think that there would be a lot more people if we filmed it now. And yeah, we did our best to make it look like I was the only one there. So yeah, that's about it.
Do you want to talk a little
Any
bit
questions
about your interest in serial killers?
Trailer. So the truck that I went in was actually an abandoned truck behind this church by my school, and it was locked, but I somehow, literally that shot where I was trying to like get in, I broke into it, and so that was a surprise to me, and so it was cool that I could get in there, but and it was very empty, and it looked like someone had used it years ago, so that's why we got that shot of the dashboard. The soundtrack, well, I've been really into the Mamas and Papas recently, and I thought that the beginning of that song really gave it that eerie kind of vibe to it, and then we cut it off right after it got more upbeat. What technique was used? Really, that's just an overlaying on the track. In we used Final Cut, and I mean, I was experimenting with editing just as much as the filming part. My friend Jake helped me a lot with that too, and so it was just kind of I was learning as much as I was experimenting with, using Final Cut, and just making a film is so interesting. So yeah, it was definitely an experience.
Do you think you'll keep making films, Savannah, in the future? Is that going to be part of your art making repertoire?
Sorry, say that one more time.
Do you think you'll keep making films in the future as part of your art making process?
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. I like being kind of in control with my art, and I learned that through my AP investigation this year. Um, so it was definitely another way to expand my medium. I really enjoyed making it. So
Savannah, as far as the theme of psychopaths and being abandoned in youth, was there a certain reason why you wanted to look into that specifically? And also, do you think there are other contributing factors in childhood that could lead one to develop the characteristics of a psychopath?
well, I chose this just because I was thinking about how, to what extent I could portray this, because when you look around Atlanta right now, it looks very abandoned and empty. And there are a lot of places around my area that are just very run down and like haven't been reopened yet. And so I thought that that could be a metaphor, using Atlanta as kind of the brain of the like psychopath as a child. Um, and as far as other factors, there are definitely many. And that is in my paper as well. I just wanted to touch on this one because I felt like it was the best one that could be portrayed. But yeah, there are definitely many factors. I mean, it's such a huge subject. You could talk about it for days. But yeah, I felt like that was the most appropriate to use.
Cool.
Thank you, Savannah. Snaps for Savannah. Okay, our last presenter for this portion of the meeting is Zivi.
Hello. I'm Zivi. I'm from New York, and for my project, I decided to look into how Galgan humor, like, which is essentially just people using humor to cope with just like highly traumatic situations or mental stress. And I decided to look into how it's been used as a coping mechanism throughout history as well as throughout my own life. And I found that really interesting, so I decided to make a couple of comics. And like, moreover, I just kind of wanted to show that like in the media, like the portrayal of how we deal with things like depression, anxiety, just really anything that can go wrong in life is one that's like very sorrowful and sad and sometimes involves mental breakdowns. And while I think that that is a very common response, I think that also other types of dealing with things like humor or jokes should be normalized, as it's like a very, very common response to it. It's just something that's not portrayed as much on a wider scale. And because mental health is something that we're kind of just now getting used to talking about, it often gets swept under the rug a little bit, I think. So I kind of wanted to bring up a new approach to how it's been like introduced as a coping mechanism, because it's been used quite a bit throughout history.
Okay, are you ready for me to share, screen share? All right.
Yeah, so for my project, I did not want to draw necessarily myself. I have like a small, like very basic little character that's been shown throughout that I kind of used to not really make it more, what's the word I'm looking for, like relatable, but also because I felt like it would be weird to draw myself, because a lot of times when I like have issues, I detach myself from the whole situation, and this was like another way of detaching things. So yeah. So like a lot of them have to do with things like insomnia. That one at least was just like social anxiety and kind of like wanting to hide in like a little hole whenever faced with like a position where I have to like talk to people that are new or like in front of new people. This was kind of about something where like every time that I want to like change myself or change my personality, I kind of just end up dyeing my hair. It's turned into a problem. I did it at Oxbow, but I feel like that's something a lot of other people do too, though. Yeah. I do also really like spoofs. Oh, this was not my experience. This was an experience that was told to me by somebody else. But on the above one and one that's coming in the future, I really also do like spoofs on the beauty industry, which is why I took the Maybelline slogan, the maybe it's Maybelline, whatever. And additionally, this was a spoof on Vogue. It might be a little bit too bright to see, but yeah, I really did try and make like a spoof on Vogue, because like I feel like there's a lot of kind of pressure around things like that. Like when you see a magazine cover, like my first thought at least is like kind of like I feel bad because I don't look like the model. And I think a lot of those magazines do promote like really unhealthy kind of like standards and diet topics. So I wanted to take that and make a little bit of a joke out of it. And then they also tackled some body issue things. And then like there are one or two about like how I kind of view and deal with death and like the thought of it and everything. And then this was something that I used to do on a daily basis. They both work incredibly hard at the same time. It's a sensation, I will admit.
Do we have questions for Zivi? Or comments?
I had a question. Since your media is pretty portable, do you think your art would have been a lot different if it had happened on the Oxbow campus instead of happening back home?
Yeah, I think had I done it on the campus, I would have wanted to make like a small physical book, because I had around somewhere like 20 to 30 ideas for comics, but I was only able to illustrate around 13 of them, just because it took a really long time for me to figure out how to use like the iPad that I was using to draw with, and there were just like a lot of interruptions and like tech problems when it came to that. And it was like a lot easier for me to just draw them out. So I think that if I was at Oxbow, I probably would have made like a small like physical flip book or something you can hold in your hands.
The question is in the chat, Celeste.
Hi. Okay, so we have two. One is, what experience do you have cartooning?
Absolutely none. I used to draw this. My therapist kind of thought that it would be a good way for me to get out my feelings through art. And then I kind of created like a tiny little, like very easy to draw character as a way to like get that done fast and get it done quickly and still be able to like convey what I was trying to say in words, but like couldn't really think of in the moment during sessions. And which is where like the first couple of those comics came from. And then I decided to create it, like, turn it into a bigger thing when I was thinking about what to do for my final project.
The next question is, what do you see as the influences, pop culture or otherwise, that your sense of humor comes from?
I think a lot of it is just making fun of it. I think things like that, like Vogue magazine and makeup companies and all of those, like the really like over dramatic, just like very dumb, like perfume commercials, I find hilarious. It's just things like that, in my opinion, put themselves on such a high pedestal that it's so easy to make fun of them because they take themselves so seriously when it's like such a tiny little product. Like, yeah, to think that, like, the idea is essentially, like, if you get this product and you make your lips a different color, you will be a whole new person. And it's just, like, I think it's so hilarious because it's something so small, and they put themselves on such a high pedestal that it's very easy for me to make fun of.
There's another question. What strategy would you suggest to others wanting to start drawing cartoons?
I think, I think probably just don't take yourself too seriously at first. Like, also, like, it doesn't have to be, like, for other people. Like, you can just make it for yourself to kind of get out what you're feeling. It doesn't necessarily, like, have to be something that you're going to publish or, like, going to show other people. It can just be kind of like a little coping mechanism for you, and that's also fine. It also doesn't have to be, like, the best art you've ever done in your life. I think it means a lot more when they, like, convey something that's meaningful as opposed to, like, it's like a Renaissance painting or something.
Zivi, I have a question for you. First, I find your work so hilarious in a way, and really was fun to look at. I began to question, though, because I question this myself, as what's your take on advertisements that try to exploit people's mental illnesses in order to help them try to feel better? And I was wondering if your work kind of added commentary on that as well.
As somebody who wants to, like, go into a career in advertising and marketing, I hope that it's something that I can at least change for one company, but I've never really liked it. I don't like the way that, like, a lot of the media, like, glamorizes depression, anxiety, or just turns it into something that's, like, because the truth about depression, anxiety, and things like that is that they're never, like, pretty or fun or, like, something that you would want to go through. And I think that there are a lot of companies out there that glamorize it in a way that is not helpful, and I don't like that. I think that it should, if you're going to talk about it at all, it should just be, like, straightforward, and it's not always going to have, like, a punchline or, like, a message or, like, something that's, like, marketable or something that's appealing, but, like, it's still there. And I think that it's horrendously irresponsible to portray it as anything other than that.
Thank you. There's another question in the chat box. Have your cartoons been a helpful coping mechanism for you?
I think they've definitely helped me get some feelings out. I think they've helped me acknowledge some things, and that's, I guess, like, the first step to overcoming. You gotta acknowledge you have a problem. So, yeah, I think they'll help me. Well, they have helped me.
Well, I think this is less of a question that, well, maybe I'll form a question than a comment. I really love how you've made this simple character and you've sort of layered the character with all these sort of complex psychological feelings, emotions, questions, and it just has become a template for just about anything you could bring to it. And you just very cleverly use that over and over again. And do you plan to keep going with this particular character in the future?
I think it could be fun. With the people that I've showed it to, a lot of the response has been to, like, put it on, like, there are, like, specific apps and stuff like that for webcomics. So honestly, if quarantine goes on, we just got extended a month. I might as well at this point. But yeah, so I think it could be something I could explore in the future.
Okay. Is that it for our questions? Anyone else? Okay. Well, let's applaud Zivi for her gallows humor.
I'm sorry, can I just hop in here real quick and make a statement overall?
Absolutely.
Excuse me. I just want to say how impressed I am with everybody's work. The subject matter that you chose, As someone who works in the mental health profession myself, it's amazing to see. The thoughts of time and slipping through is something that I deal with constantly, and trying to hold on to it. And when you do gain something back and trying to make it the best it can be, the concept of the contingencies and the things that happen that affect us emotionally and mentally that kind of determine where we become at. The use of art to relieve ourselves and humor to deal with all situations is absolutely amazing. And I'm not going to brag about my own daughter in itself, but I just want to commend you all and give you another round of applause, especially with all we're going through right now. It was truly amazing, and I'm truly touched. And thank you. Thank you all.
You ready, Darwin?
Ready as I'll ever be.
Go ahead and introduce yourself and say where you're from.
My name is Darwin, and I'm from Boston. So,
okay.
Yeah. Should I explain my project? Or what?
Yeah, do just a
okay. So my project was basically a zine exploring topics like gender, discrimination, and just trying to sort of find a way to make art that defies everything that society's ever told us about gender. So, yeah.
Sorry about that. Okay. All righty. Let's see where I need to go here. A lot of moving around. So I'll just scroll through, and if you want to go ahead and start asking questions, and or if you have anything else you'd like to say about individual pages, Darwin, please jump in.
So my idea with the cover, I guess, was to sort of, I don't know, for me, I've always struggled with, figuring who I am out, because it's so hard to figure yourself out in a world where you feel like everyone wants you to be this one thing. So you're constantly being pressured to be put into this box, and then you're trying to figure who you are out. It's just so like exhausting. And so for a long time, I didn't really know who I was, and I was just, comparing myself and then trying to be like other people. But after, a lot of thinking, I realized that it's better to just live the way I want to live. And then, if people don't like that, then what can I do? So this was a black and white photo set that I did. And with these photos, I really wanted to show that, when you feel stuck in between two things, it's really hard to, break out of that and like express yourself completely the way you want to. And so the first picture is just me like in two states where I feel like very comfortable. But the point is that they both live in me, and it's not just one or the other. And then the second is just, me living my full fantasy, not afraid of what society has to say about me. So my zine was also a collaboration with a lot of other artists. And one of those artists is my friend Thais, and I really wanted to bring people into this zine that know what it's like to be put down by society and have gone through, stuff that make them question who they are or make them feel less than someone, or, have just felt torn down. So I wanted people to bring art to my zine that empowers them and can empower a lot of other people, because I feel like my art is really about collaboration as well as like inspiration. I also did interviews with, Amadi, who we have in the call, as well as drag artist Minor Disappointment. I really wanted to highlight people's struggle as well as their success being minorities in this very hard world. And I think I really was able to capture the struggle, but the beauty that comes within that struggle of having to work so hard to be validated or recognized or, seen, taken seriously. Because it's, for a long time, it's been a battle of, oh, you can't do that. Like, no one's going to take you seriously. Like, your art doesn't make sense, because it's just been so much. And to finally feel like, I don't care. My art is my art. And if you don't like it, then it's not for you. It feels very liberating. And I think my entire piece is about liberation and, breaking free from everything that everyone's ever told me was wrong, and just like taking what was told, what like that people told me was bad, and making it into something beautiful and inspiring, I hope, because I really hope to inspire young queer people. I don't know. I just want my art to inspire other young queer people who felt like how I felt like, because I just remember sitting in my room and feeling like I was the only person who was like me, and that there was no one else that felt this way. And I just thought I was so weird. But then when I started to, lean into queer culture and actually learn about people out there who don't conform to one gender, or who explore expression through, makeup and like other things like that, I finally felt like I belonged, and I finally felt like there were other people out there like me who wouldn't say no, and who wouldn't, tell me my ideas were stupid, or who wouldn't shame me for wanting to express myself authentically. So that's what I hope to do. I hope to express myself authentically, and with doing that, I hope to inspire many people who feel like they have to hide who they are, who feel like they're alone. So yeah, that's really what my project's about.
Do we have some questions?
I really liked your breathe page in your zine here, if it's a zine, but I really like that page a lot. And I think there's a certain kind of courage that comes with this kind of work. And I highly commend you for that. And I also want to know, were you inspired at all by RuPaul's Drag Race?
So thank you. And I mean, of course, I started watching Drag Race when I was like, I remember I'd just come out, and I started watching Drag Race when I was like 12, and I was obsessed. I could not get enough of Drag Race, because I don't know, there were just people who didn't care, who did whatever they wanted to, acted completely off the wall, and like I could just see so much of myself in those people, and I felt like I had a community. So it was really great. Mm-hmm. Someone asked, were the poems created while at Oxbow? And what did you learn about yourself while in Napa? So the poems I made, I mean, here's the thing. When I write poetry, it's always like, it always takes a lot of time, because I feel like I start poems and then I never really finish them. So I did start those poems at Oxbow, but I didn't finish them until I got back here to Boston. But I think that Napa gave me, or really Oxbow gave me the chance to sit and reflect and think about what I wanted and who I was. Because when you're stuck in, I mean, it's not stuck, but it's like when you're surrounded by people who are very different from you and who don't really understand why you express yourself the way you do, it can be very tiring to maintain your identity. Even though it lives inside of me, it's so hard sometimes. But when I went to Napa, everyone was completely just figured out. Like everyone knew who they were and they were so secure in themselves that it made me feel like I could be who I wanted to be without being judged, just because everyone was so sure of themselves. And yeah, it really inspired me to, you know, break out of my shell even more and create art that wasn't just pretty to look at, but actually had some, you know, personal value and meaning and, you know, was thought-provoking. So someone asked, how do you think art can be best used to combat homophobia? I think that art is a language that everyone can understand. So by creating something that sheds light or brings awareness to, you know, stuff that the queer community struggles with, like discrimination and homophobia, I think it could be really good for the community, because I think that a lot of the time, it'll usually be like arguments between, you know, the homophobic people and the queer people. And I think that arguments don't really get you anywhere, because it's just people stuck in their own beliefs. And I don't feel like you can change someone unless they want to change. So I think that maybe if there was a way to create art that could, in a way, like mend some bridges or make people view the community in a different way than it's been shown on the media or in different spaces, then it would be really good.
Are there more questions, Celeste?
There is a comment that says, thank you, Darwin, for inspiring us with your story and your art, in case I don't want you to miss that.
Oh, thank you.
But no more questions in the chat so far.
I have a comment.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for this. I can't point to any one specific image of your work that triggered this thought, but I was picturing from the group of it that society sort of gives all of us this column A that has these 15 attributes that we should all have, or this column B that has these other 16 attributes that everybody on this side should have. And then there's all these people that, well, I've got 12 of these, but 4 of those. But okay, so mostly I can get by being an A because I've got 12 of those. And other people have 8 and 7. And everybody sort of got their unique recipe of different things that they value and are part of them and are not part of them. So it is an interesting, different view of the limited choices society gives us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really, you know, I really feel that, because the choice I felt like I had was just to be, you know, this stuck in this column and just live to all of those attributes. And for so long, I tried to, you know, keep up the act. But at some point you just, I don't know what it was, but at some point I just snapped and I was just like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I can't live sad for other people. I need to live happy for myself. And so I started doing whatever I wanted. And that was, you know, some of the best years of my growth as a person. And I think they really shaped me into, you know, loving my life instead of just living it.
Well, I think you have some really extraordinary images and pieces in your zine, and super courageous. And I hope there is a volume 2 and a 3 and a 4.
I hope so too.
How are we doing on time? And I'm wondering when we're gonna regather. So
I think, okay, I think any parting comments or that anyone would like to share? Other than that, we will restart at 5:45 with the next session of students. But I just want to say, I mean, this has just been incredible, and your work has been an incredible inspiration, and all that you've brought to it. I can't say that enough. Like, I don't know how to say it better, even though I'm sure there is a way. But you have all these students have just been really extraordinary, and you are the future, and you have such great ideas and ambitions and desires and courage. So thank you for everything you brought to this semester.
I just wanted to say that I'm incredibly impressed with what you guys have accomplished individually and collectively with only half of the exposure that most Oxbow students get. So that means, it says something about what you brought to the table. And Darwin, I'm not sure everybody was as fully formed as you thought they were. And that I think most of you are all working out of some, why am I here? What am I doing? What is this going to be about? But somehow you were able to grab that. And thank you to the Oxbow staff. You gave them enough ammunition that when they had to go home, they could attack their ideas with some ferocity, a lot of curiosity, and the skills to get more information and grow their thinking. So I want to thank both faculty and staff, but also all of you, and parents too. You know, the parents, you guys, when you send them to us, it's such an act of trust. And I hope that the faculty lived up to it for you this time. So thank you very much. This was a real treat for me.
Well, it's a treat having you here as well, Stephen. Thank you for coming and being in our group. And if anybody didn't hear, this is Stephen Thomas, the founding head of school, just FYI. Any other parting words from students or parents before we close the session?
Well, we're in a quarantine, and my wife and I spend a lot of time on weekends going to art museums and exhibits and things. So obviously we're really lacking on that. And so I want to thank all of you for bringing one to our living room and letting us do it here. It was really cool. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. You're very welcome. All right. Well, then I will see some of you later in various sessions or other formats. Thanks everyone for attending, and thanks for sending us your students. Oh. Bye.